lying about it. It says we're live.
Yes, it always lies. It lies. Okay, if you want to keep the roof attached to the building, donate here.
And the water out of it.
And the water out of it, right? If you like coffee and stories about coffee, check out these guys. They have a blanket fort blend.
And a Cajun blend.
A Cajun blend. Really good. Let them know you heard about it here, so they'll send us more coffee. So we were just discussing. Off camera is Kortnee.
Hi.
Being
very quiet,
which is weird.
Scary. That's the word you were looking for.
Yes.
On Facebook yesterday, somebody put the tips from Auntie Goth.
Yes.
And one of them was
don't lick the demon.
Don't care why you saw the demon. Don't lick it. And apparently, I was like, don't lick it. No, Kortnee, damn it. And apparently, everybody had the same.
Yep. I instantly tagged Kortnee in that.
No, Kortnee, don't, damn it.
And then it occurred to me, wait, does that make me the goth auntie? I thought that was Dorothy.
Who knows? Who knows? But it was amazing because when I started typing, there were no responses.
Mm-hmm. And then there's like five, all of them reference Kortnee.
When it reloaded after I hit there were five of them about Kortnee.
Yeah, that's a favorite.
Oh, speaking of licking demons, though,
that's a.
Well, no, it's a segue into an actual story about demons and cookies on the dark side. Dorothy's story in the Twisted Tropes anthology.
Oh yeah,
has an accidental demon summoning, and there are cookies, and it is a hilarious story, and it definitely twists the trope.
Good.
It's adorable.
So, yes.
Yeah, the demon grandson Todd.
I love that one.
Yes.
Demon grandson Todd is just and it keeps getting better. It's one of those. There are, I guess, Tumblr.
I'm not sure if that's a Tumblr thing or a Reddit thing, but there's storytellers all over the place.
Yeah, but there's a lot of there are some really good, and some. It's like, God, I wish I thought of that. That come out of that. It's got a very, very distinctive format.
Yeah, and the other thing that does it a lot is round robins, because you'll see like breaks in it.
Yeah.
Because one person started it and then another person kept it going, and I remember taking part in round robins in the old Bane Bar forums. Those were always fun because you'd write something and then someone would just take it and go that way with it, and somebody else would go whoop, and it got real twisty.
some of the best of the humans. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, totally. Dorothy's writing, I mean, so I read
She's getting better.
Dust every time,
Yeah,
which
she's
is
getting
just,
better.
I mean,
she and Jim, it's
phenomenal.
It's glorious to watch the progression.
Yeah.
Dorothy's first book to this one.
Well, I had read Dust of the Ocean while she was writing it, because I'm one of her alpha readers. There's a Discord place where a couple of us, and she gives us snips. And so I got snips of that out of order and all over the place over the course of years that she was working on that.
Saturday night.
Right. So, but then I read the whole thing as a beta, and I read the whole thing again because it could when I was doing the cover. And then I bought it and read it again. And she's like, I'm like, nope, it gets better every time.
Yeah. Just watch the progression as both Dorothy and Jim Curtis and Jim Totten, for that matter. He's got 3 out.
Yeah.
And
no, he's got 2. I'm going to be working on the cover for number 3 for him.
Yeah,
I've got to have a chat with him about that.
Yeah. Well,
because I will do his cover for him, but I'm not going to be extremely specific on his cover the way he wants me to be. It's not how this works.
No. And he's learning, and as everybody's got honing your craft takes time.
Yeah.
And nobody's a great writer off the bat, but he is, even in 3, he's gotten better.
And the thing is that I think this is with almost anything, but you can't just write it and then press save on the file and never look at it again. Because then you don't get better.
Oh, okay. In general,
And you can't rewrite the same story over and over and over again because eventually you're just regurgitating the same words.
Well, she said that, and again on Facebook, which I'm on way too often these days, somebody had linked me and Cedar and Jim on the PTSD anthologies.
Yes, we gave copies of it to Jamie Cole at the at
That's right.
Pecan.
That's what we did.
So she was there with the service dog books, and I offered to do a trade, and you facilitated that, I think.
I don't remember.
You pulled me over to the table and were like, "You two should trade books." So she got copies of the PTSD anthologies, and I have a copy of her book, which is sitting in my TBR stack, and I will get to it. But yeah, no, that was, she liked it.
That was, and when Cedar said that was a story I turned in and never read again.
Well,
I didn't even read it after I wrote it. I just wrote it and said, "Here you go."
But there's the rest of that, which is that once you write the story and you press save and close the file, there are stories that you probably will never read again. But what you did with that was you pressed submit and you shot it off to me.
I don't want to see it again.
So you don't ever have to read it, but you still get feedback. Even now,
not so much.
2 years afterwards.
Not so much.
That
one didn't get mentioned much.
I think that it's more of a general of, and she was specifically called us out in.
That story, and it doesn't surprise me because that story was.
It's rough. But the
PTSD
anthologies
and
are rough.
by the time you get, it's the last one.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to it, people are burned out. So that's one I didn't get. I've never gotten much feedback on that story at all.
A lot of people tell me with that one that it takes them a long time to read all the way through because they read a story and have to put it down and go away and digest and then come back to it. But I guess what I'm trying to say, not necessarily with that one, because that one's a bad example. That is the exception to the rule. But you should write and then put it out there for feedback. Because otherwise you don't know if you're getting better. And in order to improve, you do need some kind of feedback. Now, I know that I can do this oddly enough by closing the file and walking away from it. And if I come back to it a couple of years later, it's like reading something somebody else has written. And I'm reading it going, wait, is this one mine? But that's not the best. That is not an optimal situation for growing in your craft.
Nope.
So the best thing to do is once you have that story finished is to send it out and get feedback. Alpha readers, beta readers, or just publish it.
One of the things that baby authors do, and I thought this was a trope. I thought this was a stereotype.
No.
Is they will work on the same story for years. And I didn't think that was actually, because I didn't. We put the log files together. I just click.
Yeah.
But I watch so many baby authors that can't believe I'm actually mentoring people on this shit. So many baby authors. It's like, what do I need to do? How long have you been working on this story? Well, about 5 years. I tell you, publish. Hit publish. No, publish.
Yes.
Do you need a cover?
Yeah. And John Van Stryve has a good point. He says some baby authors work on their world for years and never even start the story. And I think that's actually, they're not an author. That's someone that really enjoys world building and maybe should go into, I don't know, game design or something where worlds matter.
I was going to say that's a dungeon master.
Yeah.
And it's a great form of procrastination. I can't write this until I know every single detail about it. No. Just write the story.
It's complicated daydreaming.
Yeah. It is really what it is. And if that's, if that's your thing, go for it. But
trust me, your world, as you write it, as you write the story, your world will unflower, so to speak. And my worlds have ended up much different than when I started out writing the story. Because I will build a world in my head. Right now, I'm building a world for something right now. And I'm building it in my head, but when I'm 1,700 words in, and the world's already changing.
Yeah,
for the better.
Yeah, it's kind of like you make a plan, and then when you start to execute the plan breaks down.
Yeah. No plan survives first contact with your player characters.
I had one world that kind of sort of intended to write like a homebrew campaign in it. Wrote half of a novel in it. I've written a novel and a half. I wrote half of the first novel, most of the second novel, and parts of the third novel, and a short story set in a completely different area of the same world, and it's all building it in my head, but it's not a cohesive whole.
Yeah.
But I started that building that in high school.
I have so many worlds in my head.
Changed and gotten better.
I have
and
so many. One of the first worlds I built, I did a novella in high school back in the 80s. And I built the world, and it started out as a Dyson Megasphere. And it was a sword and science fiction on the inside of a Dyson Megasphere.
That sounds like fun.
And that one's still in my head and still evolving. Even though I've written one novella that shall never see the light of day. God Almighty, woo! My id is a bad place to be. I was an angry young man in high school.
I'm shocked.
And yet,
Seriously?
somehow, I think there would probably be an audience for this.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I'd want to meet that audience.
Honestly,
there are stories that I've written, I've put out, and I've never ever given anybody a way to contact me about them because
people
I want to know people who like those stories.
I've got a couple that if people that would enjoy them, I would probably shank if I met them in a dark alley because they ain't right.
But the thing is, though, that once you start, if you want to be a professional writer, in other words, to get paid for your output, you have to write and you have to put it out there. You can't just press save and never look at it again.
It doesn't do you any good.
You can't grow, you can't improve. And sure, it's scary to put that out there. And Nancy's talking about she had a friend who didn't want to deal with feedback, never finished it, and had a tragic end. But that probably was all part and parcel of the not wanting feedback, because you have to have feedback and critique in order to grow.
Well, and you can put stuff out there and never read the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can get better. In my storytelling, there's actually very little feedback on my storytelling. I don't read the comments on my blog, so I don't get any feedback. But my storytelling's gotten better.
Right, and I think that there's times that you don't want to. You can read the critique. I read reviews, but most of the time the critiques are flat wrong, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Nope.
And Mikado asks if he can be an unprofessional writer, and I'm like, you have made money from your books, sir.
Sorry.
You are a professional.
You're past that point already. That's the definition of professional. Did you get paid for it? Then you're a professional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe not an expert, but you're definitely a professional. There's a difference between people don't understand. There's a difference between professional and expert.
Well, there's a difference between being a professional and acting professional.
Well, that
Definitely.
That goes without saying.
I do my best not to act professional.
No, but I've got
the wrong idea.
And I don't know. I'm sure there are writers that do just fine. I've got so many worlds in my head. I'm surprised there's room for squirrels. I have a dozen or more worlds in my head
sword and science fiction squirrels.
I have.
Have you ever played the game of misheard lyrics?
No.
Okay, there's a game that you just describe how you misheard lyrics on popular songs.
Okay.
Okay,
which
so
I know is a thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I've done it. So
I already had some tinnitus in high school, and there was a very popular song that came out called "Girls on Film," and my crappy in-dash stereo and my tinnitus, I heard "Girls on Squirrels." And I had this I built a world. I had a mental image of these chainmail bikini women on the back of war squirrels riding into combat with lances and sabers. And then I found out what the song was actually about, and what I had in my head was so much better. Girls on Squirrels. Yeah, it was chainmail bikini-clad women on the back of battle squirrels riding into battle with sabers and lances. And it's like, wow. And then I saw the video. It's like, the video in my head's so much better. And she's drawing girls on squirrels.
Just a quick sketch.
The Rumpleman's Bear Riders. I like it.
The what?
On a dark desert highway, Cool Whip and a bear. That sounds like a recipe for some fun there, Jesse.
Oh.
Well, one of the things that I referenced in the East Witch is there is in one of the fairy tales, because I was trying to find Siberian fairy tales and there isn't a lot, but there is a reference in some Russian. There's a reference in some Russian folk tales of bears with copper bells in their ears being ridden, and I really want to do that in art sometime because. So art AI is great, but it only goes so far. And if you ask it to do certain things, it's like, you want what? It will not do.
You just seek help.
It will not do a lady riding side saddle on a longhorn steer.
Who hurt you?
Now, I have the sketch because I've sketched it, and eventually when I get the skills, I will paint it, but...
We need an anthology of what we think is in Ian's head. That's a dark and dangerous place. Seriously. You don't want to think about what's in
Girls on Squirrels opened for Def Leppard in the 70s.
Giant battle squirrels riding across the stage. Weird place.
Yeah, see, armored women on battle panthers sounds awesome, but not nearly as amusing as the squirrels.
Well, squirrels on their back paws with a fluffy tail, and it was weird. It's just inside my head is a weird place. It's a weird and scary place. It's like I got the part of the Panhandle Regional Law Enforcement Academy. In order to sign, at least back in the 90s, in order to sign on with the agency, you had to have a psych profile done, probably for very smart reasons.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, Panhandle Regional Law Enforcement was one of the few academies that provided somebody came up and all of the soon-to-be graduates got psych exams. So you had a psych profile in your hand. You could hand your new agency. It would save new agency money, and it really helped to get people hired.
Yeah.
I had to go back for a second interview. Yeah. And I was told to stay out of large agencies, and I should have listened.
Mm.
That's the first time I heard the special music on CNN line. Because the head shrinker that came up, and I had to go back for my second interview, which nobody else did. He said that I was the most non-qualified law enforcement person he ever met.
Okay.
He said, your temperament is not suited for law enforcement. He said, you are going to burn out. You can hold a burnout off if you don't work for a large agency. But if you work for a large agency and you don't quit when you burn out, there will be special music on CNN. And somebody will owe me $5.
Oh, no.
Wow. And I should have listened.
You know, I actually understand what they were saying and do not disagree with that.
Well, I mean, some of it's why I fought so hard to get out of quality control chemistry, because I was not going to do well long term with that, because you do the same thing over and over in exactly the same way, very, very precisely the same way, and you expect to get the same results, because when you don't get the same results, it's a very bad thing. And I was bored as heck. So, I mean, currently the only reason the job I'm in doesn't get boring is because we keep finding other people's screw-ups, which is suboptimal, but...
Actually, Jet is right. I did profile as two caring.
Yes.
I profiled as, I believe, two caring, crusader mindset, and oppositional defiant disorder.
Shots. Shocked, I tell you.
Most of us being odd or odd in that direction as well.
Mhm.
He said, don't go to a big agency because you'll be fighting command staff more than you'll go to a small agency where you get to do a whole bunch of different things. And he said, yeah, small agencies is more about community service than is arresting people.
Yeah.
He said, you're going to get tired of arresting people for shit stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll wind up beating a command staff with soap and a sock.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Shit.
And I think, and that's what I've seen as well, is when I was in a small lab where I was doing chemistry and microbiology and whatever else the hell needed done, I was a lot happier than when I was trying to work in a bigger lab where it's very, very, you're in a groove and you stay there. And I think that there's probably a lot of us that are the odd types that don't do as well with the big agencies where you're just a little cog.
No,
in the
you will
machine.
do stuff this way.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
No, I won't.
Wait,
That manual right there does not cover everything. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't.
I was in a lab and
Opposite advice.
I was training to become a PCR technician and pointed out that something that was in the standard procedures that we had to follow was wrong. And the guy that was training me, who's brilliant and had been doing stuff with DNA before it was really a thing, I mean, since the 80s, and he'd come back to being a technician after a long absence from work due to caretaker of an elderly parent, but that's a whole other HR soapbox I don't want to get on. But he said, yeah, it's wrong, but the process to get it changed would take 2 to 5 years because of the size of the overall company that we worked for.
Look, changed.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's
Oppositional
not
defiant
that easy.
disorder.
So,
Small agencies.
yeah.
the time when I was happiest working for other people when I was going in and fixing things.
Mhm. Yeah.
Tearing something down and putting it back together so it looked right. Or walking into a position where I had one strike against me because of the person who had the job previously.
Mm-hmm.
And if we failed the next audit, everybody was fired.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I like going into a mess and turning things around, and then I get bored.
Yeah.
Well,
And then
the happiest,
Troubleshooting.
the happiest I was at my last agency was when the chief deputy said, "All right, what you're going to do is I'm going to give you money to solve the problems that aren't in the book." Yahoo!
Yeah.
And I had a blast. It was great.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, I've done a few things like that, tasked with taking on a problem and figuring out a solution.
It's not in the book. All right, so
Yep.
fix it.
Yep.
And that was the most. And then they started me back at admin, and things started because admin signing the same line reading the same memos from the same people with the same errors that you told to fix last time.
Mm-hmm.
what I discovered is that I can walk into a department and fix things, but if the people who messed them up in the first place are still in charge and still doing it, it makes me want to stab things. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, where I'm at right now, what I'm doing, I probably would not be happy doing it very long term, because eventually we'll get all of the things straightened out. But
That was the chief deputy at my last agency was extremely smart. The chief deputy I was working for.
mm-hmm.
He said, "What you're going to do is, when we run across issues that aren't covered by the book, you get them, fix them."
Mm-hmm.
And that was so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it has to do with the creativity, but I think it also has to do with the ADHD.
No kidding. I got my first thing. I literally, people don't believe me. You can ask. Y'all have met my old chief deputy. He was going to make me a lieutenant, and I argued for 30 minutes. Something was a bad idea. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons I told him, I said, I suck at the admin stuff. The boring admin stuff I cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "All right, you got Thing. She'll handle it for you." What the fuck?
Yeah. And having a really good boss, I mean, that's why I'm at the position I'm at still, is because I have no benefits. I have no time off. The agency I work for sucks. My boss, the client that I actually work for is awesome and amazing, and I love her, and she's the reason that I'm still with them and will be with them until 2025 at this point, because she's great. And now I've fled screaming from a bad boss in the past, but
My first agency, actually the academy apparently talked to the psych dude, and they sent me my first agency, which was a teeny tiny little town, and y'all probably figured out from this, it was combined. The town had contracted with the sheriff's office to provide law enforcement. They didn't have their own police department. We were about the only law enforcement in the county outside of the state troopers, and it was a month before I actually arrested somebody. But man, I was running all over fixing things.
yeah.
And that was I was dumb. I thought all law enforcement was like that. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, periodically I come across, and it tends to be in like bad fiction. I'll come across the stereotype of the small town law thing as being evil and awful, and I'm like, that is like the direct opposite of my actual experience with small town law, because Tok, Alaska, there are 2 Alaska state troopers that cover an absolutely enormous chunk of land, and that was the only law enforcement that we had in Tok. Of course, we also only had like 1,200 people, but I mean, can you imagine doing that, running around solving problems? Okay, you would be very unhappy, because a lot of that is Sub-Zero solving problems.
No, but like I said, it was a month before I actually arrested anybody, but I was chasing rattlesnakes off of front porches. I spent 15 minutes holding a pipe in a cellar that leaking while the lady of the house went to find the water shut off. So I'm holding the leak shut with pipe. That was great.
Yes.
I had a blast. I found so many lost kids and lost dogs and lost grandparents, and I had to arrest somebody. It's like, okay, this sucks.
Yeah.
And then I went another month with just being,
Yeah.
we don't know what to do with. Oh, look, Swiss Army knife and a uniform. Okay.
Yeah. And that's, I think, and it does sound like a lot of fun. I mean, and I suspect that in New Hampshire, where I spent close to 20 years, not necessarily because I wanted to, but I was kind of stuck with it. The small town police force that we had there, I think there were 4 guys. 2 of them were full-time and 2 of them were part-time, if I recall correctly. And the only reason we had that many is because the amount of countryside the town covered was quite large. People, not as many people as a rural town. So, and it's great. And the interactions with them, them teaching DARE in the school and popping in.
We didn't even do that.
Yeah. The kids loved them, and they would come in, and they did off duty. They would come in and they were working with the Lego robotics program. A couple of the officers were, because one of them had 6 kids. And I don't remember now what his rank was, but he was the guy that was in charge, and he had 6 kids. My kids knew his kids, but I was always like, he was this tall, skinny kid. I mean, he was younger than I was, and I'm like, damn, man, there must be twins in there. I never asked.
My first night after I had the first half of the flexible impact weapons course, blackjacks and saps, Sheriff hated ass batons. He drove me around. Second night, I got the second half of the flexible impact weapons course, and I drove him around. Third night, I'm on my own. And that first night, he said, "You're going to like this job, but if I don't get voted back in, if I don't win re-election, you won't get rehired. And people are pissed off, don't re-elect me. So you know how we handle stuff like this?" And there's a guy ahead of us who runs a stop sign. And he pulls up, and he goes, "Hey, what'd that sign back there say?" I said, "Stop." "Did you?" "No, sir." "Got it next time?" "Yes, sir." "All right." He said, "That's how we handle that." I said, "Okay." All right, then.
Yeah, the Nancy says, we live next to a small res. The tribal cops are great. I have heard rumors, and also there's that one video
There's a
of the
video of
protesters.
really great tribal cops. Get the fuck out of the road. Oh Lord. But it's I don't, and there's a lot more of us out there than I think that the grind jobs just aren't good for us.
Mm-mm. No. And obviously there are people that do fine with it because otherwise those jobs wouldn't exist. They wouldn't.
And
They wouldn't
they're
do- they
necessary.
Yeah, they're
That's,
necessary.
the people have heard my story about the worst ticket I ever wrote. I didn't write many tickets because you write a ticket, somebody they get pissed off, they don't reelect the sheriff, and then the
Mhm.
next sheriff hires new people. So,
Mhm.
but the kid, um, it's a typical small town cop story. I'm parked in a grocery store parking lot, just being there. This kid drives by and shoots me the bird, so I get in behind him, pull him over, walk up, get his license. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm writing a ticket." So I write him a ticket. He says, "You can't do that. You can't write me a ticket. My dad says you cannot write me a ticket for flipping you off." I said, "You are correct. I'm writing a ticket for improper use of a turn signal." Because anybody that graduated driver's ed knows arms straight out the window means you're turning left. Did you? What? You turn left after signaling turn left. No, here's your ticket. And I felt so bad about that. The next day I went to the JP. I said, "Tear up that ticket." He said, "I can't." His dad came in and paid it.
I'll bet he got a ration from his dad. Oh.
You turn left. No, sir. All right, here's your ticket.
But I think that's a good use of a ticket because if his parents were good people, and it sounds like they were, they appreciated the fact that you had pulled that kid up nice and tight and short and proved and showed him that he could indeed write him a ticket.
He was still in the pickup looking at the ticket when I improper use of a turn signal.
But that kid learned.
I hope so.
Oh.
That was wrong with me. That was so wrong. That is the one ticket, the one thing I did that I really felt kind of guilty about because that was a feather-legged ticket. It really was.
Oh.
The kid needed the lesson though.
The kid needed the lesson.
because the odds are good that sometime in his life he would flip off cop that's not you,
Yeah.
or flip off somebody who would take exception to it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So better to get that than to get shot.
$85. Dad came in and paid it. I read it. Here's the money.
My head canon is that kid was doing chores for dad for 2 weeks.
Apparently. Sheriff get reelected. Sheriff was reelected until he died in office.
Oh, yeah. I can see it because that sounds like
I miss that old buzzard. I really do.
Yeah.
He
Sounds
was-
like he was good.
He was one of the last of the high sheriffs of Texas.
Mm.
The position used to be the high sheriff, and they were the most powerful elected office in almost in the state. And then the state legislature went, "Whoa, all right, guys, let's back it down." And he was still,
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like the perception is that good men like that are thinner and thinner on the ground every year. I'm not sure it's actually an accurate perception, but it seems like things have changed.
I'm not sure that kind of sheriffing was actually a good thing.
Yeah.
He was the one that told me there's a standard law enforcement oath of office.
Mhm.
He didn't use it. He didn't have to. He was a high sheriff. He had his own oath.
Oh.
And his oath was that I would conserve the peace in the county, uphold the Constitution, and enforce the laws of the state of Texas. And then he said, if we have to beat that entire house stupid to conserve the peace, I went, eek. And he said, "Can you do that?" I said, "I guess." And that. Not sure that's actually good law.
No.
I went over in the wrong side of town. He ordered me. I was 25. He probably shouldn't have done that. He ordered me to, and I'd been overseas. I've been doing things he ordered me to stay on that side of town until they knew me.
Mhm.
I was 25. What the hell do you think I did? I went over there and they beat the snot out of me and ripped I had a vest, denim vest, and they ripped my badge off. And I came back across the tracks and I was hurting. Oh, Jesus, I was hurting. And sheriff was there, and he said, "Where's your badge?" I said, "They've got it." He said, "You take the shotgun, you go back there, you rack it, you tell them to give you back the badge. The first one that says anything except yes, sir, you kill him." I said, "What?" He said, "Go get your badge. If you can't do it, you're no use to me. Get out." So I went back and I got my badge, but I'm not sure that's good law enforcement.
No. But I also think that we've got areas now in general that are in dire need of policing. And I'm thinking about that video of the two activists that were walking down a street and decided to do the stupid thing and follow the crazy dude. And the guy got killed.
Is that the one with his girlfriend was standing there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, have you seen her GoFundMe?
Yes.
Silly bimbo watched her boyfriend get beat to death or killed, refused to describe the attacker, refused to help the police at all in the death of her boyfriend, and has put up a GoFundMe to help her get through this experience. I asked for 20 grand. She was at 66,000 last time I saw it. This silly bimbo watched her alleged boyfriend get killed, refused to help the cops in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and is now asking for money to help her through this
Horrifying time.
Yes.
Yes. It's stuff like that that I see, and I wonder if we do need a little bit, not the kind of policing that you're describing, but we need more of the community feel-good policing, which is hard to do when you've got rampant crime.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there was so many things wrong with that whole situation. But we also, I was reading a book just recently that was talking about cities and how cities are the best thing.
Not good for anyone.
Well, the end of the book's premise, because the book is called Ghost Map, and it's about tracking down. Why I picked it up and read it is it's about the men that tracked down and mapped the big cholera outbreak and basically proved that cholera was waterborne.
Okay.
So the first chunk of the book is really interesting and good stuff. And then at the very end of the book, he gets into how cities are the best thing to happen to humanity since ever, because by living all tightly smashed into cities, 200 people to square mile, that's the only way we're going to be able to preserve the rest of the world. And so we have to learn how to do waste management better and so on and so forth. And I'm looking at his premise, and if you don't know anything about people, you could read it and believe it.
Cities are not.
But when you actually look at it, how a city functions or doesn't function, and he talks about London in the 1850s, because that's the era the cholera outbreak was. And he talks about
Whitechapel, the 5 clocks or 7 dials. That was a bad place to be in 1850s London.
It was. And I mean, the thing of it is that all he's looking at is epidemiology and infectious disease. And he talks about the all the different scavenger types that managed to run London's waste management system before the government stepped in and decided to do something about it, which, by the way, led to the death of thousands because they did it wrong.
Of course. It's a city. Of course.
But I'm looking at it and I see it from a slightly different perspective than this guy does, because I'm also thinking that those scavengers, that's how we got Burke and Hare, where they were killing people in order to provide cadavers for dissection. Because that underclass, that underworld in London,
you pay for cobras, you get more cobras. You pay for dead bodies, you get more dead bodies.
And that's the thing with urban society, is that it is oof.
I hate to say this because everybody here knows how I feel about monkeys. Human beings are nothing more than up jump monkeys. We evolved in small bands. And cities are, we don't, evolutionarily speaking, we don't have the ability to care for more than a limited number of people.
Yeah, I think it's like 300.
I don't.
Yes, Dan, there was indeed. It is a
What?
There's a study involving a group of rats.
Yes.
When the population reaches a certain density, they
They
literally
get stupid.
check out, they kill each other, they kill themselves, they'll literally stop eating. It is a
It's horrifying.
profoundly disturbing
Experiment
study to
25 or something like that.
read.
Something 25.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But-
so I honestly think that cities are the exact opposite of what, evolutionary speaking, these up jump monkeys are.
Well-
They're everybody talks about Kitty Genovese getting stabbed and
Mhm,
nobody,
mhm.
in an apartment and nobody did anything.
Well, she got stabbed in the street, and nobody
Yeah.
in the houses around that for sure witnessed it did anything. So, and then they passed laws to try and get people
To make people,
to make people interfere, which is just not gonna.
It's not going to work the way they think they want it to.
Exactly.
well, the thing is having worked in a city, Wichita is 109,000 or so. It's a city.
Mhm.
Small town. No, it's a city.
It's a city.
And having worked in a lot of small towns, sub 5,000 people as law
Mhm.
enforcement,
Dynamic is very, very,
very
different.
different. If you are a woman in Clarendon, Texas, and you scream, there'll be 30 guys with shotguns and 60 women show up. I've seen it happen. I mean, for a stranger, you get a woman screaming in Owl Park, people show up. The cops have got to go to move the bodies out of the way to get to where the screaming woman is. Which not so much. Cities, not so much.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's really interesting because adaptation. There's a theory that basically humans hit a certain point and stopped evolving, which is obviously total bullshit because that's not how it works. But adaptation starts to happen.
I've got a tendon right there that says that we're still evolving.
Yeah. Adaptation can happen in a shockingly quick time. I mean, especially when we factor in epigenetics, which we still don't fully understand. So we have, as a species, Homo sapiens, have adapted to living in urban settings. But what that actually means is that you've got city people and country people that really are significantly different from one another.
It's a big difference. You can tell just from Owl Park, which is basically a bedroom community for Wichita. The social dynamics in Owl Park are much different than they are in Wichita Falls.
Well, and Wichita Falls is interesting because most cities, because of the rise in population, have, and sorry, brain going faster than my mouth can go.
Nobody here knows anything about what that's like.
Wichita Falls has been the same population size since the 1960s, which kind of shocked me when I found out because that's not a normal pattern for most cities. Most cities are constantly, slowly, and
expanding,
sometimes
and then
exploding. Now, the corollary of that, where my brain went, was the fact that we are approaching a population collapse, which will be fended off by the amount of immigrants we've gotten into this country in the last decade.
it will be concealed by.
The birth rate has already dropped to or possibly below the rate of replacement in the United States. In Europe, it dropped drastically below the rate of replacement some time ago. And say places like Italy that are selling houses for €1 are trying madly to scramble to attract more population so that their tax base doesn't all die on them.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to get. We're going to start hitting that point in a generation where we're going to start seeing shrinkage again because we have to. We won't have the population to support.
Honestly, the U.S., yes. Certain parts of the U.S., no. We Bell Road, where our population is exploding because of the California immigrants.
Yes. Yeah, but I'm talking about the United
nuts.
States as a whole, as far as the population contraction. Yes, we are seeing some really interesting interstate
no kidding.
immigration.
Yeah.
I don't even know none of it. Any
Just
of migration, I think is the right word for that inside the nation. And trying to find a U-Haul was an interesting experience when we moved up here.
Well, the interesting thing is, or what I found, quite frankly, to be spectacularly interesting, was the fact that the cultural differences in the U.S. between Texas and California, which are both Spanish influenced, old Spanish influenced states, the difference in culture between the two is far and above the difference in culture between the Germans and the English. They have more in common than Texas and California do, despite the fact Texas and California have a common language.
Do you think Mexican and German influence in Texas, Mexican and Chinese influence in California, that actually gets you a little bit closer to where a lot of the breakdown is? And then the mob moving from the East Coast to the West Coast to take over and building Hollywood.
Yeah, Vegas and Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but Texas, we don't get people moving here for the climate.
No.
California did. California, one of the 60s were bad for California because the hippies discovered the wonderful weather in California, and the hippies from the other 49 states packed up, moved there in droves.
Right.
Nobody moves here for the climate. We don't
Right.
get hippies moving this way for the climate.
No, and that, I mean, if you really look at it, that explains a lot about where California is now, because the hippies moved there and then they voted for the
hippie.
weirdest possible random selection of crap. So Ag Tiger says replacement rate is at 2.1. Yes. As of 2022, Canada is at 1.33. And which doesn't surprise me because Canada in the last,
Canada's gone flat
Canada
stupid.
has a reputation as being the nicer cousin of the U.S. But if you scratch the surface, Canada's not a nice place.
No, it really
hasn't been a nice place.
No.
Because it's like everybody talks about the Native Americans and how they were treated with the U.S. expansion. And but if you go and you look at what they did in Canada, it was so much worse. And again, because I get this from family, because I'm related to Athabascans, so who did not want to be stuck on the wrong side of the border when the state happened. If you go and look at it, they were pretty cold and callous with how they tried to integrate the cultures and destroy the cultures, rather.
People talk about Canada as being just polite America, and that is not the case. Especially not now. Here in the last 5-10 years, Canada's gone flat barking bug nuts.
And it was already going that way.
Yeah, but woo!
Yeah, living in New Hampshire for that 20 years and seeing people come down from Quebec to vacation down in the lower 48 into the U.S., they wouldn't call it the lower 48. That's an Alaskan thing. But just they were very, very odd. And that has infected the rest of Canada because the main population density in Canada is mostly on the East Coast and in that area.
And they have some. There are Canadian. I like some Canadians. There are many Canadians I thoroughly enjoy, especially out in Calgary and the West part. I like those guys. They're just North Texans. But the Eastern guys, they've got some weird ideas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them that are perfectly on board with government censorship of language. That's a good idea. What the hell?
And the Quebecois, Rick T is pointing out, they're xenophobic. When they're talking about language, the Quebecois they wanted to go to being all French speaking, and they've tried to secede, to leave the rest of Canada multiple times. They are very much all out for themselves, and that's where a lot of the population density for Canada is. So there's a really unhealthy dynamic going on there.
Yeah, the Quebecois, those folks are, like I said, they are perfectly all right. They are perfectly okay with restrictions that just send Texans around the bend.
And the government-sponsored euthanasia of depressed people.
Of depressed veterans. Yeah.
Well, and that's a European thing. It started in Europe, and it's in
Even the
and
Europeans
in
are going, what?
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that once it came to Canada, grabbed onto it with both hands, and
Yeah. Oh, you're a veteran and you're depressed. Have you thought about medical assistance in dying?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, I've reported my minister, and I am the minister. This will not happen again. And 2 weeks later, it's happened again.
Yeah, and yeah, and the whole thing with cities is it comes back to there's that brilliant line from Men in Black that I'm going to mangle with. A person is a rational, reasonable
People
thing.
are dumb, panicky, stupid animals, and you know it.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the difference between just one person and a whole city
A
full
group
of people.
of them.
So yeah, it's
Cities have not done us. Every time I hear one of Gene Simmons, whom I generally admire, Gene Simmons from Kiss, I generally admire him. He seems to have his head on straight, and his kids seem to be fairly good. Seems to be fairly decent kids. And he said he quoted saying that every kid needed, as soon as you can leave the house, move to a city. It's like, no, do not move to a city, especially not these days.
yeah. That's why I've been kind of glad that my kid has decided that he wants to work. Well, whether he does what he's talking about doing right now with the whole I'm going to become a paramedic thing.
This week.
Right. But he would like to work on agricultural equipment, and I'm all for that plan.
Sounds like a plan.
So I think it would be a good thing for him to work with farmers, because by and large, farmers are really sound and sensible people. And again, there are always exceptions.
Yeah,
But
always. I thoroughly enjoy ranching and farming, folks. I really do. One of the I miss about the Panhandle was the ranching and farming culture up there, which we don't have nearly as much down here. And I really kind of miss that.
Yeah.
And I had really thought with the rise in high-speed internet that cities would start breaking up. And then I realized that when you break up a cancer cell, it just moves somewhere else. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, we're reaching metastasis. Although, my poor boss, the large client I work for, which I'm not going to say in public online, has started to make serious movements towards making everyone come back in the office. The problem with this is that they had gone in and remodeled and modified offices so that they were, I don't know what the good word for them is. They're basically just like crash pads. You come in, you grab a spot, you do some work, you get out again.
That's not good for productivity.
It's the open plan.
That's bad.
Yeah, and
that
it's like
bad dynamic.
And it's like my boss was there one time, and there was nobody else there. She and I had a one-on-one, so she actually put on her video and wandered around and was showing me that they had like chairs that were like a seat on a big ball, so you sat on it and you could rock. It's supposed to be good for ergonomics, and there's like couches and fun sitting areas. But when she has to have a meeting where she's speaking to, she's like whispering because she's in an office with two other people and trying not to disturb them while she's in this meeting. And she is a manager of a group of 7. And it's like, and they want you to come back and be in this office all the time. You're never going to get anything done.
No. Reed and I were discussing something the other day, and one of my pet peeves, of the billions of pet peeves I have, one of my pet peeves is young people that want to get rid of a custom or a habit, a social habit or social dynamic, without realizing why it was there to begin with. Well, we don't like the way X is done. We're going to get rid of X. Well, they never thought to figure out why we do X,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or have something
Yep.
to replace.
Chesterton's fence, Ag Tiger.
What's
It's Chesterton's fence.
okay?
Chesterton said that you shouldn't get rid of the fence until you determine if the fence is there to keep a bull on the other side.
Good,
Mhm.
good. And that's it's we need to get rid of traditional workspace.
Yeah.
Let's find out why we have the traditional workspace.
I have worked in a very large open room with chest high cubicles, and it wasn't a full enclosed cubicle. There were just like corridors of chest high cubicles. And it was crazy making. I mean, that was the job that I fled to get down here to Texas, but for the boss, but that was one of the reasons, because we hid in the lab most of the time, whether we needed to be in the lab or not, because being out in the cube farm was horrible.
My favorite when I was working for the sheriff's office, my favorite office setup. I was over in another building outside the courthouse, and this building was set up. You had a central hall, and then you had a open area with offices and doors around it. And then you go down the hall and be another open central area with offices with doors around it. And it was on both sides as you went down. So I had an office, I could shut the door.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then we had the open area where the coffee maker was, and it was around,
Mhm.
and the office around an open area
Yeah.
with a central hall. That
Yeah.
was the best because I could shut the door, slam,
Mm-hmm.
and write or do my stuff,
Mhm.
but I could still step out and socialize if I had to.
Mhm.
And that was the judge. I was liaison with the courts, and I would get judges come through all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really good when a judge came in and needed something done. I could shut the door and not have everybody else that was in that one section
Yeah.
Mhm.
hearing what the judge needed to tell me. It was really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had workplaces where so for a while there before they would to get tags printed that go on the shelves.
Mhm.
They had to be printed at central office and then sent to all the stores. And if they didn't send the right tags, they had to be written out by hand. I had one set where I had to write out 1,500 tags,
Oof.
Bloody hell.
and they wanted me to do this standing in the middle of the aisle without a desk or a clipboard. Or I'm like, so one of the people offered me their office that could look out over what I was
Mhm.
doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait, but my people see what they're doing in work. And I got written up for using a desk because I wasn't directly in front of the project that needed to have the work done. I'm like, I'm handwriting 1,000 tags. Like, what do you want me to do with this? This is a 7-hour job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But in that one assignment, I had a dedicated office with my desk and my stuff and my picture on the wall and a door I could lock. But there was that big open central area
Mm-hmm.
with it had couches and a
Mhm.
coffee maker, and you have people out there that do it, and then they can flee to their offices and shut the door.
Mm-hmm. Danzy, it turns out having your streets on a grid makes it easier to travel around as compared to Boston, which was laid out by painting a drunken cow's hooves and then letting it wander off.
That's what I hear.
That's where I learned how to city drive, was in Boston.
I like grids. Grids make things easier.
Grids are nice.
Grids make things easier. It makes directions go east or go north or go south. I like grids.
Yes, grids are nice. So, paid to go look for ghost radar sites on your bike. That sounds like a really great job, Winklereed.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I did not love driving in Boston, but it was the closest city to us, and my dad got sent to some of the top medical people in the world to try and solve his problems, and they did not. But it's always entertaining when you're sitting in an exam room and a whole gaggle of people comes in, all the students and everything.
I like the West.
Mhm.
I like the West.
I like that it's more spread out.
Yeah.
I came to Texas, and I'm like, I finally feel like I'm at home again.
Well, speaking as somebody that eats your food on every fourth Saturday, I'm glad you're here too. Oh, Cedar's cooking tonight. Well then,
am I going to dinner this weekend? Oh, it's Cedar's weekend. Yes, I am. I'm sitting here going, She's gonna make cheesecake. Dessert. I'm not gonna be.
I can always throw a piece in the freezer for you. If there's any left.
If there's any left, yeah.
I'm doing a ricotta cheesecake for Saturday supper this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that.
Don't forget, October 21st, we're having the first ever quarterly potluck.
Yep. Potluck get together, and ping me for a sign up sheet, and the sign up sheet also has the times
Pie,
and
dessert
directions.
pie, dessert pie.
And honestly, one of these times we're going to have to do all pies, because you can do savory and sweet, and we could do all pie. Pizza pie.
Yeah. So, what are we? Or all will burn.
October 13th
is out Friday the 13th. Not sure we planned that right, but okay. And then after that is Space Cowboys. No,
Space Moggies 2.
Space Moggies 2.
Space Monkeys 2.
Moggies in Space Part 2. Part meow will be out after All Will Burn. Tuesday, we're going to have a StreamYard with Casey Ezel, so we can talk about All Will Burn. And then we can break the news to her that All Will Burn 2 and 3 are on deck. Oh, Lord. I have to use 6 days of leave by the end of the year.
It's a nice problem to have. Take some time off and write.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Turn in stories, guys. Send us stories. I keep feeling, X is closed. We're Raconteur Press. Have you not been following us? If we announce an anthology, odds are the anthology 512 will be coming down the pike sometime soon. So turn in your stories anyway.
Yep. Don, I would love to be up there and make the cheesecake for y'all. Unfortunately, I have to be an adult.
Yeah,
So
I need to call Don. Hey, Don, can I call you when we're done here?
Oh, good, Dan. I'm glad to hear you have another one to working on. Yeah,
Right,
folks, go take a look at Law Dog's blog and all the open calls that are out there. There is a ton of stuff. So if you're in the mood to write, or even if you're not in the mood to write, then write us something. Recipes
practice.
at rackpressrecipes@gmail.com.
Yes.
So
Forgetting about that.
RACPRESS, rackpressrecipes@gmail.com. Because yes, we are still open for recipes for the Raconteur Press cookbook.
Yep.
So, and if you have other questions, you know where to reach us.
Yeah. One way or another.
All right.
Chase us down at a con or something, if nothing else.
Killed an hour of time.
We killed an hour and 2 minutes. All right. So y'all be safe, okay?
Bye.